Welcome to the She Would Know podcast,
where curiosity meets expertise. Welcome back to the She Would Know podcast. I'm Shayna.
And I'm Chelsey.
Today is very exciting because this is the first episode we are recording since Chelsey had her baby.
I know, it feels so good to not be pregnant.
How are you feeling?
Today I'm feeling tired. I feel like the broken up sleep is finally catching up to me. The adrenaline of like having another kid is worn off.
How old is baby now?
He is, tomorrow he'll be 3 weeks.
How does that work if he was born on a Thursday?
Oh, Thursday he'll be 3 weeks. You can tell when my brain's at. I thought it was Tuesday.
Even then.
He's almost 3 weeks. There we go.
So baby is 2 weeks and he's over there in the corner. Hopefully we get a little, soundbite from him. You can include some most sweet little baby cues.
He's just passed out over there.
He is. He's so stinking cute. So you are still on maternity leave from your day job?
Yes. Yes, my day job is a therapist. I took 1 week off before my due date. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember if I'm doing 6 or 7 weeks afterwards. But I go back to work on August 20th.
What does maternity leave look like as a therapist?
Well, if you don't see clients, you don't get paid. Mm-hmm. So there's no such thing as paid maternity leave. So that sucks. But other than that, I feel like it's like anyone else, I'm just not working and it's really nice.
You're just not working, but not getting paid.
Yeah.
So not really a maternity leave. It's just like a
break from
It's just a break.
Yeah.
I also have never had a paid maternity leave. So.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that would be like to not work and get paid.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. We should do a whole episode on what maternity leaves look like in different careers.
That would be really fun.
I think that'd be really fascinating. Because I know some women, especially in different countries, it's like you got a year and a half, 2 years off.
I know, and I just saw, maybe I shouldn't even say this because I don't have the total accurate facts, but I just saw a thing on Facebook about some country approving grandparent paternity leave or maternity. I don't even know what you would call it, like grandparent leave to help out with your kids. I should look that up, the exact country it was.
Yeah, that would be crazy. Yeah, like my husband, he gets really good paternity leave, better than I'll ever get.
Yeah, my husband doesn't get anything.
Yeah, that stinks. Yeah, your husband went back to work like 3 days after baby was born.
Same thing last time too.
Oh my gosh.
Luckily, last time when I had my first, my parents were living in Germany, so that sucked. I didn't really get a lot of help in general. Mm-hmm. But this time they're back, so they've been super helpful. So that's been nice.
That's awesome. They've been able to take your daughter and give you time to bond with the baby.
Yeah, come help me clean my house. That kind of stuff.
That is the most help.
Yeah, and my parents are retired too, so that was really nice.
Okay, well, today's episode, we're going to talk about your birth story.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. I've heard it. I've lived part of it with you.
Yes.
But I'm super excited to hear all of it and to share it with everybody. Do you have anything else you want to say before we get started?
No, we're talking about birth, so I guess if that's triggering for anybody.
Yeah.
I did end up getting transferred to the hospital, so if that's triggering, I don't know, but.
Yeah, everything was okay. It was a overall positive experience.
Yeah, I'd say less traumatic than my last birth.
Yeah. Things did not exactly go as planned, but.
When do they ever?
Yeah, right?
When do they ever?
All right, well, let's jump into it.
Okay. I'll give some background. How about that? So my first pregnancy, I did just a typical birth in the hospital. I had cholestasis with my first pregnancy, which is where pretty much your liver poops out when you're pregnant and you get really itchy, and they have to induce you early because the longer you have cholestasis, the higher likelihood you have of having a stillborn. So I got induced it was like 36, 37 weeks, like right on that border. And gave birth in the hospital. Being induced sucked because my body was not ready to go into labor. It took like days for my body to like react to they tried all the different induction methods, like a Foley balloon and then what's it called, Cervidil, and then finally Pitocin. And my epidural didn't work. So I was not prepared for the pain and the sensations. that had me thinking when I got pregnant this time around, I need to do something to prepare more, have more coping strategies for the pain. If I do get an epidural or if I don't get one, whatever. I just knew that I needed to do something different so that I didn't feel so caught off guard by it. And I went to midwives with my first, midwives that were like overseen by an OB. And with my second, I went back to them. And these midwives are very, the first midwives I went to were very like medical. It just seemed like you were going to your OB. It didn't really feel like it was like a hippie midwives or anything like that. But around 27 weeks, I started a hypnobirthing class, which is like meditation for pain management during labor. There's not really a ton of hypnosis. I feel like the title is kind of misleading. It's more meditation than hypnosis, and that like changed everything for me. I learned so much about birth and physiological birth and how our bodies are just meant to birth. It doesn't have to be super medicalized, and I don't know, just the education I got in that class was super empowering, and I changed my mind and decided I wanted to do a home birth. And so I switched to some home birth midwives. And it took a while to actually find one because they get like booked out pretty far in advance. Like I think I reached out to 3 or 4 different midwives and they were like, sorry, we're not taking anyone who's having babies in July. But I ended up with midwives that I totally love, and yeah, changed my whole plan from doing a hospital birth to a home birth. It was awesome. And I would say the hardest part about doing a home birth was telling people I was doing a home birth, because a lot of people have opinions about it. Some people are better at keeping their opinions to themselves than others. But like my parents were like shocked and not very supportive at first. So that was tough because I'm pretty close with them. But eventually they got on board when they realized I wasn't going to change my mind because of their opinions. And anyways, yeah, so then we started our journey preparing for a home birth, and it was so fun.
What specifically made you decide on a home birth versus a hospital birth with no interventions?
What I felt like when I had my first birth, and maybe it's because I was being induced and they had to monitor you more when you're being induced, I'm not sure, but I felt like I was being bothered all the time. Like I wanted to just like, I don't know, be left alone to labor in peace, because there's not anything they can really do to help you. Once you're like in active labor, you kind of just have to get through that phase until you're ready to push, and then they can help you. But I just felt like having the IV and them coming to check and monitor and having that thing over your stomach that every time you move, it like would start to beep. I don't know. I just felt like I was being interrupted all the time. Mm-hmm. And then learning more about how when our body is in a state of not fight or flight, like just in a calm state, your birth goes much faster, the pain is less. Learning about like the fear, tension, pain cycle, like when you're afraid, you tense up and then you have more pain. And the hospital for most people isn't a place where we feel super calm and relaxed. I knew I would feel more calm and relaxed at home. And also just learning more about how birth doesn't have to be a big medical event. For most of history, it hasn't been a big medical event. Learning about like the medicalization of like the birthing industry too was something that like was super eye-opening, and realizing I don't have to be afraid to give birth. I don't know. I was telling my husband, I was like, the meditations worked too good. Like I'm not scared to give birth anymore. And I don't feel like I need to be in a hospital to do it. Did that answer your question? I can't even remember now what you asked me.
Yeah, I was just asking. I asked what made you decide between home birth and hospital, no interventions. And I think, and you did answer. I think a lot of it is also dependent on obviously what country you live in, and then what the hospitals are like, because some hospitals, I mean, a lot of it is just liability issues where it's like they won't let you go without monitoring or specific things. Like speaking as a nurse, like, yes, you can refuse an IV, but we document it as a refusal because it's to cover our butt.
For sure. And I didn't want to be like fighting for consent while I'm in labor. Like I knew I could, like I can refuse anything. Like I think a lot of women forget that like all the doctors work for you. Like you can do whatever you want, even if it gets to the point of signing like an AMA or whatever. But like, do you really want to be doing that when you're in labor? And I didn't.
It's it's really hard to advocate for yourself in the hospital, even as someone in the medical field. This isn't about me, but my first experience giving birth, it was like, I know a lot, but the hospital I was at they would not accommodate. And it was basically like, if you refuse these things, then you have to leave AMA, which is then a whole mess with insurance and stuff. But I do know that there are hospitals, probably in America and in different countries, where they have birthing centers where you can be close to a hospital, but have no interventions and do have a more like home birthing experience, which sounds lovely. Unfortunately, that's just not accessible for everyone.
Yeah. And even just different hospitals around the East Valley where we live have different reputations for being more accommodating to different interventions and stuff.
So from a financial standpoint, or like insurance wise, what did that look like for you guys deciding to have a home birth and going with a midwife?
Yeah, for us, the price wasn't that different because we have a high deductible plan. My husband's insurance totally sucks and it's so expensive. So we have a high deductible plan. So our deductible is like $5,000 or something. And for a home birth, at least for mine, my insurance doesn't cover home birth. Some might, but again, my insurance just really sucks. So, I mean, there's some things that cover like blood work, and that pretty much is it. So like blood work, my midwives would order, got covered. But a home birth is anywhere from like, I mean, it depends on which midwife you go with, right? They're anywhere from like $3,000 to $10,000, depending on who you go with. The one that I went with was like $4,500. So we hadn't met our deductible, so we would have been paying a similar amount at the hospital anyways. So yeah, that's kind of the financial side of it. You pay cash, and we saved up in our HSA for it. I mean, as much as we could with 10 weeks. But, well, I think we started saving up before that anyways, because we knew we were going to have a big hospital bill anyways. But yeah, that's kind of the financial side of it. Most home birth midwives, you just pay cash.
Right. Okay. It also included like some postpartum care, which was really nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it covered like all my prenatal visits, the delivery, and then 6 weeks of mine and the baby's postpartum care.
Which is so cool.
Yeah.
That they like came to your house.
Yeah, they came to my house and did postpartum visits.
Which is honestly the dream, concierge medicine.
It is. I don't know why. I mean, you're not supposed to drive for the first, depending on like if you have a vaginal or C-section, for the first few weeks anyway. So I don't know why everyone doesn't just come to your house.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. Okay. So you know what it's going to cost. You kind of know what you want as far as home birth. Like, what other preparation did you do?
So with the hypnobirthing method that I was doing, I would do like the meditations every day. Like in my class, they gave us like these guided meditations to do every day. And it just helps you to like visualize a peaceful birth. Because I think a lot of us are afraid of birth and we hear crazy birth stories. And anyways, so I did that every day. And then there were like some physical preparations as well. Like my midwives gave me a list of things I needed to like collect and have all in one place, like 12 towels and bleach and hydrogen peroxide and bowls and what else? A plastic bed cover, and then like a sheet I was okay with getting blood on. And a birthing pool. I like labored and delivered in the water. So it was, I don't know, the list took up pretty much like a whole page of like an 8x11. So there's a lot of things. And they were like, just collect all these things and put them in the corner. And some of them I have no clue what they were for. They were like, have a 12-ounce mason jar. And I'm like, okay, I have one. I just threw it in the corner.
I wonder maybe for the placenta.
Yeah, they ended up putting the placenta in a Ziploc bag in my freezer. We actually just threw it away. I was debating whether or not if I wanted to like encapsulate it or not. I decided not to, but I don't even know what they used it for. But oh well, I just followed the rules. I
want to know now.
Got the things. I guess I could ask them next time I see them. So there's like the physical preparations of that as well, and then a lot of too just talking with my husband, like making sure we're on the same page about things. And luckily my husband was down. I did not have to convince him at all. He came to the first hypnobirthing class with me. I would have loved it if he would have been able to come to all the classes, but we had a hard time finding like childcare for our 2-year-old. So anyways, he came to the first one, and the first class is where they really talk about like the history of birth and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, when I brought it up to him, I was like, hey, I'm thinking of doing a home birth. He's like, okay. And he was just so down to do it.
He's so chill.
He is really chill, his personality. And yeah, those were kind of like the physical and then like the mental preparations. A lot of doing the meditations and just keeping my mind. I tried not to listen to bad and negative birth stories, and
no anti home birth rhetoric.
Yeah. I mean, what's the point? Yeah. So yeah, those were some of the preparations. And then it kind of got to a point where we were just waiting. You know, everyone gets to those last few weeks and you're like, am I going to give birth in 2 hours or 2 weeks? Or sometimes it felt like never.
Yeah, I hate the waiting game. I'm so grateful for my scheduled C-section. Where it's like, I know when the baby is coming out and I can plan stuff around it.
Yeah.
But that works with my personality.
Yeah. So my due date was July 6th and I ended up going into labor on the 4th of July.
It was so fun to wake up to that text. I felt so bad that my phone was on silent.
Oh, it's fine.
You had texted me at like 4 a.m. and I was like, oh no.
I know. Yeah. So yeah, at 5 a.m. my water broke and I mean, I was asleep and then just like a gush of stuff came out. And the only time I'd ever felt a gush of stuff like that was when I had a miscarriage and like a bunch of blood came out. So I was so scared. And I like woke up my husband. I was like, go look and see what color all this liquid is that just came out of me. I was so scared. And he's like, it's clear. And I was like, okay, that's way more than pee. Like it was a gush, not like drizzle. Like, because it's totally possible I could have peed my pants at 39 weeks pregnant. But yeah, it was clear. So I had never naturally gone into labor before because my first I was induced. So I was so excited. And I thought like, oh, contractions are going to start right now. They didn't actually start until like noon.
Yeah, it took a minute.
It took a long time. Yeah. So we just went about our day. The advice I always heard was just like ignore early labor as much as you can for as long as you can. So my husband got into like manic energy mode and he was going around the house doing stuff, cleaning up the house. I don't know. My husband always wants our house to be clean if someone's coming over. I'm fine with there being like, if it's a disaster, I'll try to clean up. But if there's a little mess, he's like, well, the midwives are going to come over. We got to clean the house.
Oh, I thought it was like for the baby. Like the baby's going to be here. I was like, I don't think he'll notice. But yeah, the midwives.
And I was like, oh, it's fine.
They're about to see a big mess.
Yeah, we're about to make a big mess in here. Anyways, yeah, my water had broken. So yeah, my husband was cleaning up the house. I was like, well, I'm just going to try to go back to sleep. I couldn't go back to sleep. And then we accidentally woke up our daughter. We were too loud. So my water had broken and then we were watching The Incredibles at like 6 a.m.
Perfect.
Just killing time. And I was the anticipation, the excitement of like, am I going to have contractions? Am I not? What's going on? I literally felt nothing.
That's crazy.
It was really weird.
Because usually, I mean, you have contractions and then your water breaks, right? No, I guess it can happen either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some people even go into labor and their water doesn't even break.
That's true.
And we had plans for that day. Like my husband had just gotten a new job and so we needed to like decorate his office and
we're going to come to a pool party.
Yeah, we were going to go to a pool party with you and we had a plan to go out to breakfast. And so we were like, well, let's just do our stuff. I'm not having contractions. So I'm like walking around Hobby Lobby.
Was it open?
Yeah, it was open
on
4th of July. Yeah, oh yeah, it's open now. There's a new one in our town.
Yeah, I didn't know it opened.
Yeah. So I'm like walking around Hobby Lobby. That probably helped things. So Hobby Lobby is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end, I was so tired of just walking around trying to find decorations for my husband's office. And then we went out to breakfast. And I had like a few little contractions when we were out to breakfast. Just like, oh, I can feel my muscles tightening a little. Nothing like uncomfortable. And then it was almost noon. And so we were starting to drive home. And then I started having contractions when we were driving home. And I used this app. If anyone is giving birth soon, I used the app called Freya and I loved it. It's like a hypnobirthing app and it will like play guided meditations. And then when you have a contraction, you press this button and then it will start. There's like a breathing technique that they teach you in hypnobirthing. I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's like you just double your exhale to your inhale. So like inhale for 4, exhale for 8. Mm-hmm. So it'll do guided meditation, and then when your contraction starts, you press this button, and then it will start talking you through the breathing that you're supposed to do. And then you press the button when your contraction ends, and then it goes back to the guided meditation. And then it keeps track of your contractions and tells you how far apart they are, how long they are, and then it will label it like active labor or not active labor or whatever based on like the timing of your contractions.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It was like probably one of the only apps I've ever bought, but it was like $6, and I feel like it was totally worth it.
What were the parameters for you to, like, you had to reach before calling the midwives?
Yeah, it was 1 minute long contractions for an hour, 5 minutes apart.
Okay. But you let them know that your water broke, so they kind of had an idea. It could be today.
Yeah. And I'm like far on the edge of like the area that they service. So yeah, I tried to give them lots of warning because it probably would take them like 45 minutes to get to me. And I'm so glad that I did, because at first my contractions were like 24 minutes apart when we were like out and about and like coming home. And then they quickly were like 10 minutes apart and then 8 minutes apart. And they were like 8 minutes apart for a while. And once I got home, my contractions were, about 8 minutes apart. So it went from 24 minutes to 8 minutes within like 30 minutes of just us driving home from like Hobby Lobby. And it was just so exciting to like be in labor, because I felt like I had worked so hard to get there. Because I had cholecystitis with my first, and I didn't get it with my second. My midwives had me on this whole protocol to try and prevent it from happening.
And it worked?
And it worked, which is amazing, because with anything with birth and women, there's not a lot of research on it. So the best research I found is that there's like a 60 to 90% chance, which is a huge range, of getting cholecystitis with your like next kids. But yeah, I was on this whole protocol and it worked, and I was just so excited. But by the time I got home, it was around 12:30, and I was laying in bed just like trying to rest between contractions and stuff. And they were pretty easily manageable at that point. And I was listening to my hypnobirthing meditations and trying to just breathe through them and like stay calm, because I know that if I could keep my body calm, labor would progress much faster. And I mean, I must have done a good job of it, because I had the baby within so that was around 12:30. I had the baby at 2:30. So like labor went by really fast.
Yeah, it went by fast. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't there, but I did come pick up your daughter.
Yes, yeah, you were our person to watch Mia, because my parents were out of town at the beach. Yes. So I told, when my water broke, I told them, and then they decided to come home. But it's like a 7-hour drive. Yeah. So yeah, you came and got our daughter.
I got her at like 1:15. Yeah. That's when I left your house.
Yeah. And by 1:25, my contractions were 2 minutes apart.
Which is because you had told me they were 6 to 8 minutes apart.
Yeah.
So 10, 15 minutes earlier.
Yeah. So when I texted you, I was like, yeah, can you come over in like the next hour or so? I was like, no rush, but really.
Well, I'm glad I did not wait an hour. Oh my gosh.
Because they were getting intense, and I just so I was laboring in bed, and Spencer was watching TV with my daughter, just trying to keep her away. And I wanted him near me to just, I don't know. It's just like comforting to have your husband next to you. And I felt like I was asking you to come get her way early. Like I felt bad about it, which is so dumb. But I was like, oh, maybe we should just wait longer. Then she doesn't have to watch her as long. But I'm so glad I asked what I did, because I don't know. Is it scary for a 2-year-old to see someone give birth?
I mean,
I'm not sure.
I don't know if you were like screaming or whatever. That might be traumatic, but honestly, she probably wouldn't remember it. So
yeah, probably. But I didn't really want her around, because I didn't want to be worrying about her.
Yeah.
Or I didn't want her to like, I don't know, try and get in the birth pool with me or something. Get covered in my blood.
I'm just like imagining like either of my kids being like, Mommy, is that your bum?
Yeah.
Like narrating it. I'm like, oh,
totally. Or be like, I want some chocolate milk. That's what my daughter would say. She always seems to ask at the worst time. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so yeah, you picked up me at like 1:15. By 1:25, my contractions were 2 minutes apart, and my midwives were on their way. And my contractions were intense at this point. Like just deep breathing didn't feel like enough to feel comfortable. So I asked my husband to fill up the birth tub, and it's pretty much just a little inflatable pool that's like, I don't know, if I was sitting crisscross applesauce in the pool, there's probably like 6 inches around me. Like it's really not very big. It's just enough for one person to sit in. And so he was filling that up, and I was laying in my bed, and my body was like kind of starting to push. And it's just such a weird, if you've never felt like it feels like your torso is gagging. I don't know how to describe it. Like when you gag, you can't control it. It's just like, ugh. And I didn't feel that either. I don't know if it's because I was induced before, or I had an epidural, or what it was, but I didn't feel that with my first. The like natural, just like my body was pushing it. It wasn't even like I feel like I need to push. It was like my body is pushing. Like the baby was just ready to come.
That fetal ejection reflex.
Yeah. And my midwives weren't even there yet. And I was like, what is happening? And they got there at 2:00. Well, so my husband filled up the pool. I got in the pool, and it was like instant relief. Like You hear that water is helpful with dealing with contractions, but it really is. The contractions didn't even bother me when I was in the warm water.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Like I could feel them, but yeah, it was so amazing. What was uncomfortable at that point was just the pushing and like feeling the baby starting to come out and like feeling my vagina like really stretching and stuff.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah. But it didn't last long. So yeah, my midwives were there got there at 2, and I was already starting to push. I was so in the zone at that point. Like by the time I got in the pool, I don't think I opened my eyes again until my baby was born. Like just like so in the zone, focusing on like trying to just keep my body relaxed and let it do what it needed to do. And my body started to push the baby out, and in one contraction I could like feel the crown of his head, and then he kind of went back in, and then the next contraction his head was out. And that was just crazy to like reach down and like feel a head coming out of me. I don't know. It was just so weird.
That sounds weird. It reminds me of when Kourtney Kardashian gave birth to her first baby. I don't know why I remember that so vividly, but I remember watching it and she like pulled her baby out. And I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah. I didn't pull my own baby out. My midwives did. But yeah, just being able to feel him.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was crazy. Like I heard about this like that often. You think the baby just kind of like comes out in one push. But yeah, his head came out and his head was just in the water. And then the next contraction, his whole body came out. And I will not lie, the ring of fire was terrible. I've forgotten about the contractions, but I will never forget about the ring of fire. I felt it with my first too. But it just feels like everything down there is literally on fire. But it doesn't last very long. It probably was like 5 minutes.
That's nothing.
Yeah. And that's like one of the like affirmations and like things they say in a lot of the hypnobirthing meditations is like, I can do anything for a minute. And most contractions and, you know, the ring of fire and things like that don't really last longer than a minute or two. But then the baby was out and he was here. And my husband took a picture and I looked so exhausted, but just like so happy to just like have the baby. And they quickly get you out of the birth pool and onto your bed so they can measure blood loss, which is really good that they did because I lost a lot of blood. And yeah, so they get you out of the pool. And I remember just being so tired thinking like, I can't lift my legs up to like get them out of the pool. And the pool's like maybe 3-4 feet tall. But anyways, I got into bed. They lay down. You lay down and I delivered the placenta. I don't remember delivering the placenta with my first. And the second time, it's not that bad. I think I pushed like once and it came out. And they just like put it in a bowl. They put it in a KitchenAid bowl next to me.
You'll have that image in your mind forever. Making cookies. Oh, my placenta was in that.
Yeah. And we did delayed cord clamping. So the placenta just sat in the bowl and was still connected to the baby for like an hour. And yeah, he came out. He was 10 pounds and 2 ounces.
Oof. Wow.
Big baby. And he was feasting, I guess, in there on my placenta. And he's been feasting ever since. He regained his birth weight in like 4 days. And just
good job, dude.
Is a chunker. And he's like 1 pound heavier now. So he's gained a whole pound in the last 2 weeks.
Which is crazy because he doesn't feel big at all.
Yeah.
He feels so small.
11 pounds. Now he is. But so crazy. So yeah, I delivered my placenta, was laying in bed, and they were worried about how much I was bleeding. So they kept putting these really spicy herbs under my tongue, and they got the bleeding under control, but the amount that I had lost was considered a hemorrhage. Like they got the hemorrhage controlled, but it was considered a hemorrhage. And with midwives, there's different levels of midwives, but the midwives that I had, there's like limits on what is in their scope and what is not in their scope, like legally. So if someone has a hemorrhage, that risks them out of their care and they need to be transferred to the hospital. And then my baby, his oxygen levels were low. They were in the 80s. They're supposed to be like high 90s. And so that risked him out of their care as well. So they had to call 911. And they had oxygen there. So once they realized his oxygen was low, they like put an oxygen mask on him. So he was okay. And I was okay. I mean, I felt tired, but I didn't feel like I was like passing out and stuff because of the blood loss. And so Then an ambulance came, and I had like 15 paramedics in my room. The wires must have gotten crossed. They thought the baby was coding and like dying. He was fine.
Yeah.
And so a ton of paramedics came in. I'm like literally butt naked because I had just given birth and then I was trying to breastfeed.
Yeah.
So that was so awkward. But they were all so relieved to see like him alive and me alive. And they didn't know what was going on. They thought the baby was like a week old. And anyways, there was just a lot of miscommunication. But they ended up taking us to the hospital. And by the time we got to the hospital, just like 8 minutes from my house, the baby's oxygen level was like 97. So he was fine. And then they ended up just giving me an IV, and then they kept us overnight, and we were okay. So it sucked that we had to be transferred, but I'm still so glad that I was able to give birth at home. And it was honestly kind of nice to be at the hospital afterwards because the nurses like helped me latch and would like bring me stuff. And I don't know. I think home birth, hospital recovery might be the way to go.
Yeah. I've seen those like luxury postpartum hotels in like New York and wherever.
Ooh.
Where they like go and they have food and people bring all the stuff to them, and it's not like a hospital room. It looks like a really nice hotel room, but they just go there to recover, and I'm like, how nice would that be?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I give birth in the hospital, and it's nice to have them bring me, but it's still just like you're in a hospital, and I'm in a lot of pain, so it's not like a lovely experience, but it is nice that there's like people you can call to do things for you, to bring you drugs.
And what I thought was really interesting about this experience in the hospital is everybody knew that I had just done a home birth, so they made a lot of assumptions about what I wanted and didn't want in the hospital, which was awesome. Because they assumed I didn't want an IV, and I didn't. I mean, I wanted to get an IV, but then I wanted them to take it out. Like, I didn't want to sit there with, like, what's that called when it's in your hand? Like, just the needle is in your hand all the time.
It's a catheter, but that's what the IV is.
Yeah.
It's just a catheter.
Because, like, when I was giving birth with my first, like, I had the needle, but it wasn't connected to anything in my hand all the time. I don't know what that's called.
It's just called a stat lock. It's just there. That's the IV when you're connected to fluids.
Okay, so that's the fluids, and that's the IV. Yeah. So they assumed I didn't want that. They assumed like consent about what I was getting and what the baby was getting was really important to me, and it was. So that was awesome because I feel like with my first, it was assumed I just wanted everything the hospital was going to do, and not assumed that I didn't want what the hospital was going to do. So that was kind of a really unique experience. And then I noticed the same thing when I was at the pediatrician, and I told them that I did a home birth, and then I feel like it, I don't know, changed their mindset about what I wanted and what I didn't want. So
it'd be better tiptoe around this granola hippie.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh man. But yeah, so we stayed at the hospital overnight, and then we came home at like noon the next day, and my midwives came over and checked on us, and yeah, we were fine, and we've just been resting and figuring out breastfeeding, and I've been going to a lactation consultant. It has been awesome.
Yeah, so because you weren't super successful with your first breastfeeding.
Yeah.
How has it been this time around?
So much better. So with my first, her blood sugar was low, like after birth, so they wanted us to supplement with formula, and then she had a hard time latching, which I know now she probably had a tongue and lip tie. I mean, she probably still does. Because it's genetic. My husband has one. I've looked in my mouth. I have one. And then my son did. Anyway, so yeah, breastfeeding was not very successful. I think I breastfed for like 2 weeks with my first. But we were also supplementing with formula, and and I had a lot of sensory issues with it too. I just hated like my boobs leaking and then being hard and then being soft and people touching me all the time. And I don't know, it just was like too much for me. This time I really wanted to just give it a fair shot and get the support, because I never went to a lactation consultant with my first. And I don't know why. I don't know if I was just too tired or
it's
what it was, but
I feel like it wasn't widely talked about. Like no one mentioned to me a lactation consultant. I found one on my own, and I'm like, oh, this is actually really important.
Yeah.
Because most doctors, nurses don't know anything about breastfeeding.
Yeah, yeah. And there's this website, I think it's called Lactation Network. You can go in and put your insurance information in, and it'll tell you like what is covered, and then like connect you with someone that's nearby you. So I found out my insurance covered 2 visits before you have your baby and then unlimited after, which again, my insurance sucks. So if mine covers that, yours probably does too. You should check.
That's an incredible benefit.
Yeah. So I went beforehand and just, it was nice to be able to talk about my past experience. And then she had some theories as to why things didn't work, why my supply wasn't good and whatever. And she just really set me up for success. And then I think I've gone 3 times now since. And this last visit, she was like, I think you're ready to graduate. Like, you guys are doing great. And she referred us to someone to get he got a tongue, a lip, and a buckle tie all cut. So he has a brand new mouth, but he's figured it out now, and nursing is way less painful. My nipples are finally healing. Today's the first day I'm not wearing silverettes. Silverettes are like these little metal discs you put on your nipple in your bra to like keep them from rubbing on stuff. And I feel fine. I don't feel like in pain. So anyways, things are going much better this time in the breastfeeding.
Are you planning on continuing to exclusively breastfeed?
I gotta figure. We're gonna have to pump some because I'm going back to work.
Well, I think pumping counts.
Yeah.
You're still feeding him from the boob.
Yeah.
But
that's the plan. And formula is way more expensive now than it was 3 years ago. Yeah.
Formula is so expensive. I do supplement, and I anticipate having a supplement if I have another one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not fun. Just gotta work it into the budget.
Yeah, honestly. But it will. Last time with my first was during the formula shortage, and that was so. I remember driving to Phoenix to go and try and find formula.
Yeah, it was really stressful.
Yeah, that was terrible. But there's plenty now. So, yeah, that's my birth story. It was quick. I still am just like, I can't believe I gave birth to a 10-pound baby in 2 hours. Like,
yeah, that's incredible.
Blows my mind.
Put that on your resume.
Yeah, the coolest thing I've ever done. Like, I've peaked. I'm never gonna do anything cooler than that. And now he's here, and he's such a good baby. Like,
he's so cute.
He cries when he wants food, and he cannot tolerate a poopy diaper. Like, the instant he poops, he wants it to be changed. But I get it. Me too. If I was pooping in a diaper.
Yeah, so uncomfortable.
He is a good baby. And he looks exactly like my daughter.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
She's pretty cute, so.
Yeah.
That's fortunate for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just hanging out in the corner. He's going to be our permanent guest in all our podcast episodes.
Yeah. We should get Mama Roo to sponsor. He's in a Mama Roo swing right now.
Yeah, I can't believe you didn't have a baby swing.
I know. The minimalist in me is like, I don't need anything. And we borrowed my sister's swing with my first, and she just didn't like it. So.
Yeah, those babies are a stinker. I remember, I got this swing that he's in right now for my first, who just turned 4, and he hated it. But I was like, I spent $100 on this. I'm not getting rid of it. So I kept it for my daughter. My daughter liked it better. Or was it the other way around? No, it was that way. Yeah, my daughter liked it better. And yeah, I've just still held on to it. And now it has its 3rd user. So,
that's amazing.
We're getting our money's worth, and he seems to like it. So.
And that's the thing about baby stuff, is it doesn't really get worn out.
It does, but it's also like the equipment. Yeah. What you mean. The things that you use for the first few months, it's like you use it for a little bit, and then that's it. So buy it secondhand, borrow it from a friend.
Yeah. And baby clothes. We got all our baby clothes from my brother, because they have a baby boy who was like, has he turned 2 yet? He's almost 2. Anyways, we got all their clothes, and it's awesome. I'm not gonna have to buy baby clothes for like 2 years.
That's amazing.
Well, I don't know. He's growing fast, so maybe he'll be in like tutu at his first birthday party.
My cousin's babies are like that. They just turned 1, and I was like, what size should I buy them? She wanted jammies, and she's like 2T. I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
And I always size up in jammies too, though, because if you get the kind that don't have the flame retardant stuff on them, they're tight.
That's true. But even then, these jammies are tight on them. They're just some big kids.
Yeah.
They're twins, and they're big. But yeah, he's here.
I can't imagine having twins.
Oh, I can't either.
Shout out to all the multiple parents.
Yeah.
I have a cousin who has triplets, and I just can't even imagine.
Yeah, you guys are on another level. Well, thank you for sharing your birth story with us.
Thanks. I love talking. It's so therapeutic to just share the story.
Recap. And it's Awesome that it was a positive experience for you.
Yeah. It was a really positive experience. And just, I don't know, often when I'm like sitting in bed nursing, I look and I'm like, I gave birth right there. I gave birth like in my living room. I don't know. Or not my living room, my bedroom.
Yeah, that's wild.
Just right there. It just blows my mind.
How are you going to move? How could you ever move?
I know. I don't think we're ever going to be able to sell our house.
It's like, that's where I brought my baby home to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's where he came to life, was right there. Not even to bring him home.
Yeah. Yeah. He was born right there. It's amazing. And yeah, now I just got to get my body to recover.
Oh, that's a whole nother journey.
Mm-hmm.
Postpartum. We should find a postpartum fitness or wellness expert and talk to them.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Kind of help coach you through.
Oh.
Is there anything specific you're planning on doing right now?
I just started like a core rehab, pelvic floor and core. Why am I having a hard time saying this? A pelvic floor and core rehab program. I'm doing it through SLAM, the Strong Like a Mother.
Okay.
What's her name? Ashley something. And I really like it. It's boring. The deep core and pelvic floor exercises are freaking boring.
It's boring, but it's hard at first.
It is.
And you're like, why?
The heel slides. I was doing those yesterday and I was like, why is this so hard? My stomach was literally burning.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it feels pathetic. But then I also had to remind myself there was a 10-pound baby in my stomach 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
your muscles are completely separated.
Yeah.
Everything is floppy.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like with my first, I didn't notice this, but now if I lay on my side and like the way my stomach like kind of lays, I can see the ab separation.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of getting better as the days goes on, but I was like showing my husband, I was like, that's my ab separation. Mm-hmm. And he was like, whoa, that's so
and
crazy.
your not your placenta, your uterus is still shrinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, how are your uterine contractions?
Oh my gosh. I didn't have any with my first. This time I was like, I had heard people talk about after pains and I was like, this is terrible. It was terrible.
It's crazy. If you don't know, if you haven't given birth, after you give birth, your uterus has to shrink back.
Yeah.
And
there were times where I felt like I was in labor again.
Yeah. It's painful, especially after you've had a second or third baby. Mm-hmm. And it can be triggered by breastfeeding. Breastfeeding triggers it. And it's just like the worst pain because you're trying to hold your baby. Mm-hmm. And like, you're like, oh.
Yeah. And I remember crying and telling my husband, I'm like, I'm just tired of everything hurting. Because I'm like trying to nurse and his latch wasn't very good at first. So my nipples are like, oh man, when they don't have a good latch, it's like toe curling.
Yeah, they shred them.
Like, I don't know how to describe it. I feel like the pain made me feel my teeth, like, just like, ugh. And then you start to have contractions at the same time. And it was just, oh. Okay, a breastfeeding thing that has been amazing. The My Breast Friend nursing pillow. Mm-hmm. Amazing. I feel like my posture or my back or whatever, like, doesn't hurt at all this time around. I feel like my back was hurting so bad with my first. So.
I might steal that from you.
Yeah.
After you're done.
Totally. Give it a shot. One of my supervisor gave it to me. She got it on Nellis auction. At first I thought it was like kind of weird, but now I'm like, oh, that was so thoughtful. I'm using it.
That is so
12 times a day.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Nellis auction is like a local eBay thing, in case anyone doesn't know. But yeah, I really like that. It's an awesome product.
All right. Anything else you want to share?
No. If anyone has any questions, shoot me a DM. I love talking about this.
Talk to Chelsey about her experience, and then we're going to have your hypnobirthing expert. Is that what you call her? Instructor, coach. Yeah. We're going to have her on the podcast to kind of talk a little bit more about what hypnobirthing is, because I honestly have no idea.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to learn, and we'll talk with her through how that can help any type of birth experience.
Yeah. I'm really excited about that. So yeah, she's a doula, and then she taught the hypnobirthing class that I did, and her name is Alex, and she's just so nice. Yeah. She's one of those people where I was like, I want to be friends with you. But she's like, you know, one of those moments where you're like, do I want to be friends with someone more than they want to be friends with me?
Yeah.
You know? She'll probably hear this and be like.
Anyways, we're super excited to have her on and chat with her. And yeah, thank you for sharing your story.
Okay, thanks.
And we will catch up with you guys. Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed. And yeah, if you have any questions, shoot Chelsey a DM. She'll answer you. And we'll catch up with you guys next week.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of She Would Know.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review.
We would love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for topics and experts you would like to listen to in the future, drop a line in the comments or send us a message on social media.
To stay up to date with She Would Know and get all the behind-the-scenes content, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at shewouldknow.podcast.
Don't forget to stay curious, and we'll see you next week for a new episode.